particularly misleading or difficult or whatever.
I guess I could just start with the last one.
Sure, go right ahead. I'm going to write it on the board just for the people that might be watching this later on YouTube or whatever.
A dialysis patient requires 250 liters of distilled water for treatment.
I'm sorry, a what now?
250 liters of distilled water.
Okay. 250 liters?
Mm-hmm.
Liters distilled water. Okay.
How many gallons?
How many gallons is 250 liters?
Mm-hmm.
So 250 liters of distilled water is equal to how many gallons? Okay.
So he gave you like a hint of 1 gallon equals 4 quarts.
Yeah, you're gonna need to know that one. Here's what I recommend to you all, and I don't know if you all have heard me say this, so if you haven't, I'm gonna go back over it real quick, okay?
Mm-hmm.
What I recommend for you guys is for the remainder of this semester, okay, metric to metric conversions. If you know how to manipulate the metric system, you can do those. If you know how to convert from a kilogram to a gram or a gram to a milligram. Standard to standard conversions, like 1 gallon equals 4 quarts, some of those you're just going to have to know off the top of your head. But when it comes to metric to standard or standard to metric conversions, it's a good idea to pick one and learn it and know it like the back of your hand. In this case, what I recommend for you guys for this semester, for the rest of the semester, is to learn 3 mass and volume. Pick one of each for length, mass, and volume. Learn it, stick to it, know it to where you can recite it in your sleep. And the 3 that I would like for you to learn is 1 inch is equal to 2.54 centimeters. With mass, it's 1 pound is equal to 454 grams. And volume is 1 quart is equal to 946 milliliters. And the reason I say that it is important for you to learn one for each dimension and stick with it is because there are several different, I could think of 4 or 5 for mass off the top of my head. 1 ounce is equal to 30 grams. Length, 1 yard is equal to, or 1 meter is equal to 39.4 inches is another one. Quart, 1 liter is equal to 1.06 quarts. So there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can do metric to standard or standard to metric. But the best thing to do is to learn these 3 and to use them all semester long. That way you don't ever have to worry about getting confused, getting something backwards, or am I looking at this correctly, whatever the case might be. You know these 3 and you can always go to them and you can do it flawlessly. So let's think about this problem. Okay, all problems are going to have what? They're going to have given information, right? Mm-hmm. And they're going to have needed information. What's the given information?
250 liters.
250 liters. That's the given. Okay, is that metric or standard?
That's metric.
That's metric. Okay.
And just to ask a question.
Yes.
Isn't there 2 liters in 1 gallon?
No.
There's not?
No, there's not 2 liters in 1 gallon. There are 4 quarts in 1 gallon. There are about, well, I'll tell you exactly, there's 1.892 liters times 2, so there's about 3.7 liters in 1 gallon. Okay. So yeah, that's we'll get to that. So and then we need to know gallons, and that is the needed information. And is gallons metric or standard?
Mm-hmm.
Standard. Okay, so we know we're going to be performing a standard to metric equation here. Okay, what I like to do personally, this is just my little trick that I like to do. I like to draw a road map. Okay. All right, we're starting out the road trip. we're in liters, correct? So they're giving us the liters. We need to wind up in gallons. Okay. So then we're going to go to our 3 conversion factors that we've learned, and we know these religiously right now, okay? And this is volume that we're dealing with. And the one that we've chosen to use and to know backwards and forwards is 1 quart equals 946 milliliters. Okay, so do we have a conversion factor to go from liters to gallons directly? No, we don't. So, what do we have? We've got milliliters to quarts. Okay, so we're in liters. So to use this conversion factor here, we're going to have to go from liters to milliliters, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that only takes us part of the way. Now, we're in milliliters from liters. Now we can go from milliliters to quarts because we have an established conversion factor that we've chosen to use. So now we can make the jump from milliliters to quarts. Quarts, but we need to be in gallons. This is one of the standard to standard conversions or US to US conversions that you will just have to know. There are 4 quarts in a gallon. There are 2 cups in a pint. There are 2 pints in a quart. Those you will just have to, unfortunately, you can memorize as many of those as your brain will hold. But when it comes to standard to metric, I suggest using these 3. And if you really want to bone up on stuff and start learning stuff, you know, learn that there's 2,000 pounds in a ton, okay? Because that's the kind of stuff that you're going to see on a test maybe, and they're going to expect you, as somebody that grew up in the United States, to know that there's 3 feet in a yard or 12 inches in a foot, okay? So, quarts to gallons. How many quarts in a gallon?
4.
Great, all right, so now we've made it all the way to gallons. That's our roadmap, okay? So we're going to need, the next thing I like to do is to write down the conversion factors that I think we're going to have to use in this problem, okay? And how do we know which conversion factors we're going to need? Our roadmap tells us. We need to know how many milliliters are in a liter. Can anybody answer that question? So let's write over here, let's write the conversion factors that we think we're probably going to have to be able to use or going to need to use in this equation. So 1 liter is equal to how many milliliters?
Isn't it like 100?
I'm sorry?
100?
1,000.
1,000.
Yeah.
I knew it was one of those.
Well, that'll get you on the test because you'll be off by a factor of 10. Or another way to write that is 1,000 milliliters is equal to 1 liter. Okay, so that's going to get us from there to there. Milliliters to quarts. We've got that one. That's one of the 3 that we know like our own, we know it like the back of our hand. So 1 quart is 946 milliliters, or 946 milliliters is equal to 1 quart. Okay, let me see. I want to make sure that I'm getting enough of this on camera. Okay, there we go. All right, so that takes us from milliliters to quarts, and then quarts to gallons. We've got to have a conversion factor to make that last jump from quarts to gallons, right? So you just told me, and you were correct, that there are 4 quarts in 1 gallon, or that can also be written as 1 gallon to 4 quarts. Okay? So now we've got all of the conversion factors that we're going to need in this problem. So let's begin the problem. Okay? We're jumping in the car. We're ready to take, we planned out the road trip. We've got our stops made, and we're ready to take off and go. What do you always start the problem with?
What you know.
Huh? I'm sorry?
Given information.
The given information, correct. The given information in this case is 250 liters, okay? I like to put a line over this just to make sure that when we do the addition or the multiplication down the line, that I know that the 250 belongs on top and not on bottom. Okay? So that just helps me to keep it straight. You'll see a lot of people, particularly professors that have done this a lot, they'll just write it like this. And then you're thinking, well, geez, does that go on the top or the bottom if you're not used to doing these? That can be a little confusing. So I like to put the line there. You can even put over 1 because every number has an imaginary 1 underneath it, okay? Because the number divided by 1 is that number itself. So if that helps you to keep it straight, whatever you got to do. Okay, we're in liters, right? How do we get from liters to milliliters? Well, we have a conversion factor that takes us from liters to milliliters. Okay, so if we're trying to get out of liters and into milliliters, we're going to go diagonally, right? That's how they're going to cross each other out. So that means that liters, which is what you're trying to get away from, is going to be on the bottom. So 1 liter is equal to 1,000 milliliters. So now that we've made the jump from liters to milliliters, I like to draw an arrow. That lets me know here's where I'm at on my road trip, okay? And so now that we're in milliliters, where do we need to go next, according to our roadmap? Quarts. Okay, let's look at our conversion factor that takes us from milliliters to quarts. 946 milliliters in 1 quart. Because we're getting out of milliliters, the milliliters are going to go on the bottom, so they will cancel each other out. So 946 milliliters to 1 quart. Draw your arrow. I know this sounds mundane or oversimplified or silly, but if you draw your arrow on your road map, you always know where you're at, okay? Now we're in quarts, and we need to get from quarts to gallons. So we need one last conversion factor, right? Okay. So we have a conversion factor, 1 gallon to 4 quarts, 4 quarts to 1 gallon. So pop quiz, does quarts go on the bottom or the top?
Bottom.
Thank you, good job. 4 quarts to 1 gallon. So now we're here. We're there, we're at the hotel. We're ready to get our bags out of the car and go jump in the pool. Now we got to do the math. So this is where you get your calculators out. You're going to multiply everything across the top. 250 times 1,000. That's 250,000, right? 250,000 over 1 times 1 is 1 times 946 is 946 times 4. What is that?
66.
Grandpa's brain's not awake yet.
06.07.
No.
66.
I'm sorry?
66.07.
Well, I was going to say, we rounded to here, is the whole number?
No. 946 times 4. Okay? So we multiplied the top, right?
3784.
3784. Gotcha. I understand what you were trying to do, ma'am, but I didn't want you to get ahead of me. You went on and divided this part, right? And you came up with the 66. Okay. For simplicity's sake, I'm trying to do this. All right, so let's continue our problem right here. So now, now that you've got the top multiplied and the bottom multiplied, now you're going to divide the two, right? Which is what you had already done a minute ago. So what was the answer? 66 point what?
06.
66.06. Now is where you start canceling out anything that's like on the top and on the bottom. If you've got liters up here and liters down here, you can cross them out, okay? If you've got milliliters and milliliters, as long as there's one on the top and one on the bottom, you can cross them out, okay? So quarts, and that leaves us in gallons, okay? Which is what when we started this problem, we were trying to wind up in gallons. So 66.06 gallons. However, we're not finished because we need to put the answer in the correct number of significant figures, okay? And how do we determine, what have we done here? We've done multiplication, right? And division. what is the rule for multiplication and division when it comes to significant figures?
And you go by the least, the one with the least significant figures.
The least number of applicable significant figures in the problem. So we start with your given. How many significant figures in 250 without the decimal?
2.
2 sig figs. Okay, this is a metric to metric conversion, and it is a defined conversion, which means it's an exact number. So significant figures in this do not count. Okay, anytime you've got a metric to metric or a standard to standard conversion, significant figures do not count. They're considered to be exact numbers. There's no margin for error. We know that exactly 1,000 milliliters equals 1 liter, and exactly 4 quarts equals 1 gallon. So we don't consider these significant figures on any of the metric to metric or standard to standard conversions. So those don't count. 1 quart to 946 milliliter is a different story. That's in standard to metric conversion. And with standard to metric conversions, you do consider the number of significant figures. But you do not count. One of them is almost always 99% of the time going to be 1, and the other one's going to be a measured value. So in other words, we've measured 946 milliliters is equal to 1 quart. So forget about the one that's the digit 1, okay? Always go by the one that has the most significant figures. In this case, we have 3 significant figures. If it's a 1, it doesn't count, okay? And one of them is almost always going to be a 1. Okay, so we need to present our answer in the least number of significant figures predicated by the information within the problem, okay? So we've got 2 here, we've got 3 here, this doesn't count, and this doesn't count. So what's the least between 3 and 2? 2, right? Okay, so how do we put 66.06 gallons into 2 significant figures?
Just make it a whole number?
66.
Make it a whole number. So 66 gallons, okay? So what we've done is we've just rounded and we've gotten rid of the 0.06. So 66 gallons is the correct answer to that problem. Is that what you all came up with?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions about that? About how we got to that point? Don't hesitate or don't feel embarrassed to ask if there's something on there that you're not quite getting. I mean, we're here to help.
I understand.
Help get it right and learn and succeed. Never any shame in saying, hey, I don't get it, let's work it again, okay? So, and I encourage you all to, I know you got to get to lab, but to come back, and we're going to be doing this all semester long. This is